All right. Anders Fung, thank you so much for joining me. We are very fortunate to have the opportunity to speak with the mayor of Millbrae.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to have an opportunity to meet with everybody of the audience, virtually, and be able to speak to you live
Yeah.
with everyone here in San Mateo County.
Yes, absolutely. And for the people that don't know you, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started with running for city council.
Yeah, so I was able to join. Well, it traces back all the way to 2017. In terms of my personal life, I'm a real estate developer and also a contractor. So I do quite a bit of real estate work to begin with. So I know planning and constructions and real estate for a bit. And so when 2017 there was a planning commission spot opening up, that was an opportunity, and I was fortunate enough to be encouraged by many of my neighbors to join the planning commission. It was a bit of a process at the time. I still remember. It was an open debate on the council, in front of the council. It was pretty nerve-wracking, but that opportunity opens up my first chapter in public service, being on planning commission. And when 2020 wraps around, Wangley it's termed out, and that would have left the only Asian that was on the council at the time, term limited. So, with many blessings and many supporters, I was encouraged to run. And it was a successful campaign, and I was able to get elected on a 33-vote margin.
Excellent. Excellent. I assume you're enjoying yourself?
It's an honor, and it is a privilege. As the first Asian American immigrant to be elected to office in Millbrae. When we have over 45% of our population here in Millbrae as a first generation immigrant, and over 60% of us are Asian. So it is being able to speak the language that most of them do, coming from a similar background as they do, and this campaign represents sort of the true promise that this promised land it's fair for everyone, and if you work hard and play by the rule, you should be able to succeed.
It just occurred to me that you got elected in the height of the pandemic. That must have been hard.
I am this new breed of elected that was elected during the pandemic, when you cannot do door knocking and you do everything through a face mask.
Right.
And right. No fundraising dinner, right? So it was a bit of a new experience for many, and it was also a very rewarding experience. But still get to be able to do online meetups such as this, sure. And be able to talk to potential voters and my neighbors, so that they can get to know me and get to know one another. And the result was I was fortunate enough to be elected on some of the slimmest margin.
Right. Now, did you grow up in Millbrae?
No, I was born and raised in Hong Kong. Okay.
And when did you move to Millbrae then?
I came to the country at 18 years old, and that was about 30 some years ago.
And always in Millbrae.
I moved to San Francisco. And then went to school, and then came back, and I moved to the peninsula, San Mateo County, about 2007. And I moved to Millbrae in 2009. So been here about 16 years.
Okay. Well, that's very helpful. So you and I met at the Millbrae Educational Foundation Gala, and I really enjoyed speaking with you at that time, because you gave such great insights about what's happening with the downtown area. And for someone like myself, who's a real estate agent, I believe that the downtown area is a huge draw for people. And so that's why I got really excited in speaking with you. And I wanted you to come on and kind of talk about that a little bit, because I don't think everyone realizes how much is being done right now. Perhaps you can kind of tell us some of the major projects that are happening in downtown Millbrae right now.
Yes, I think, it's not exactly a secret that our downtown has been, we've inherited a downtown, that needed a bit of a work, right? We have a few empty storefront. When I first got elected, one of the most popular comment, most frequently heard comment or wish list from the voters and the constituency is that how to make downtown a little bit more vibrant, how to, spruce up our economic situation right here in downtown, because that's the main thoroughfare, which is Camino Real and the Broadway. And it was really the southern part of the Broadway, that few blocks, that captures the vast majority of our business activities. And yet, as valuable as they are, these real estate, we still see a lot of, one-story buildings and older storefronts. And the question there becomes, how do we ensure that we have the highest and best use for all these properties, and how to capture all these business opportunities, given the fact that, we're one of the most important intermodal transit center, within the Bay Area, if not, the entire state, because we have Samtran, we have Caltrain, we have Burt, and we have future high-speed rail, and San Francisco Airport is, only a few blocks away. So, with that said, there's all these opportunities at which, we can bring more travelers into Millbrae and be able to spruce up our economy. What's the basis of where it comes from in terms of those wish lists?
And not just the travelers from SFO. I mean, we also have like so much construction that's occurring on Rawlings Road right now that's bringing other businesses and foot traffic to our downtown area. I mean, would you agree?
Absolutely. And just to kind of bring us back into the memory lane a little bit, Millbrae has always been in the past been considered as more of a bedroom community back in the days. And that's where we came from. And, as we bring in new fresh ideas and new wants and needs, Millbrae has now, slowly quickly, I should say, becoming the life science center of the Bay Area, where we have, 4 new buildings coming up, nearly 2 million square feet of life science lab and office space.
Well, we also have Samtrans also that's moving it.
Right, and then that's across the street, which is the train station, which is the transit center, which I can discuss a little bit more in a moment. The new life science building that we're coming in, we're nearly about 2 million square feet of lab and office space. And for the first time ever, Millbrae become a job center. Mm-hmm. And we're creating thousands of new jobs that are high quality jobs. And the first worldwide headquarters for Icon Therapeutic is slated to move in the next couple of months. And they're actually put the furniture's in. So the people are likely to come in as we speak. And that's just a part of the equation, as part of our multi-pronged approach in terms of our economic development. Mm-hmm. And then right across the street, which is the transit center, and that's when the gateway, 400 units of residential housing, plus 157,000 square feet of office space and many more on the commercial retail down on the ground floor with new Paseo. And the 150,000 plus square feet is going to become the new headquarters for Samtran and Caltrain. And so that is going to become a bit of a government center moving forward here. And then there'll be hundreds of new employees, administrative and executive employees coming in Millbrae and become part of our daytime populations as well.
Well, that's all fantastic. So, I mean, we're getting the stream of people, the foot traffic coming into the downtown area. What are some of the things, like from an infrastructure standpoint, are we doing in Millbrae that's going to support this new foot traffic?
Yeah, so we're doing quite a bit of stuff, right? So, you see a lot of traffic improvement here on El Camino Real. Between all the other infrastructure that you mentioned, there are many different things in terms of fiber optics that we're laying in the last couple of years. We're increasing, many of the traffic calming measures and ensuring the traffic flow is better. We have different strategy in terms of, building out new parking garages so that we can accommodate, all these new incoming daytime populations. But more importantly, as we continue to bring in, new daytime populations, we also need to build more housing. And, we live in California where we are living in a housing crisis. And yet, we need to continue to find ways to, be able to house more residents right here in Millbrae, because it is such a desirable place to live. And yet we need to find ways to bring down our cost of living, because that has always been a number one challenge right here in this part of the Bay Area. As appealing as we are, but we need to make it more affordable so that more folks can live here.
Yeah, and we have several projects that are being built right now. One is the Office Depot, right? And along with that project is also going to be some affordable housing as well. Is that true?
So yes, and that is actually currently in construction. The Office Depot is going to be about 197 units with another 17,000 square feet of retail space. And along with all of that, which sort of that location anchors the north of Safeway, which is a bit of the northern part of our Camino Real, downtown core. And then there'll be a public paseo and public space being built with the west side of Office Depot, the old Office Depot building. And that's going to become a bit of a public space as well. So, the whole plan here is to, revitalize our downtown and bring more foot traffic into it, and then making Millbrae becoming a destination for those who want to work, live, and entertain.
Yeah. One of the things that kind of is interesting to me is we are going to be basically building more in the downtown area. The Office Depot is only one example of that. Are there other projects that are building and increasing our housing? Because I know that's something that's very important to you, is to be able to increase housing to lower the cost as a whole. Would that be accurate to say?
So I think, what's important here is that Millbrae has always been considered a premium location for those who want to live in San Mateo County. We're safe. We've got, some of the best weather, and we're right in the middle of, between San Francisco and the Silicon Valley. So, it is an extremely desirable place to live. And so to that end, as you well know, and being a realtor, the cost of living has, always been a challenge. Trying to come into Millbrae and buy a home, it's, for many young professional, as high of an income earner as they are, it still could feel like a far-fetched for many of us.
Yeah.
So how to, make sure that we can bring more supply in Millbrae, housing supply in Millbrae, and then at the same time making them more affordable. It's going to be key to our success and key to the future of Millbrae. We have a relatively compact and efficient city, about 23,000 people. And we want to be able to see, that continued growth in the city of Millbrae. And also growing our younger populations, our professional populations as well. Quite frankly, a lot of our parents would certainly like to see their children and their grandchildren to live closer to where they are, rather than living away because the cost of living continue to go up. So, it's a priority of this administration to make sure that we build as much to bring housing cost to a more affordable level and to be more available as much as possible. And to that end, yes.
Sorry.
To that end, recently we just approved the 1301 Broadway, which is 97 units of 100% affordable housing. As you mentioned a moment ago, Gateway, the new development, which is 400 units of housing, of which 25% of that, 100 units, are permanently affordable as well. And also the new Terminal Crow building, which is the Office Depot site, 197 units, and that's going to be, I think it's about 9-10% deep affordable units as well. So more of these things are going to come online, and our goal is to make sure everyone who wants to be able to live in Millbrae get to live in Millbrae.
That's beautiful. Now, the other part of that equation is that, so we've taken care of the low income housing or affordable housing part of it. But the other thing that I know what's important to you is actually to be able to maintain the quality of life for the people that are already here as well. Can you talk a little bit about how you think that can happen while you're in office?
Yes, and thank you for the question there. But so the first thing is, why is Millbrae so attractive? And how do you make sure that the city it's welcoming? And first of all, we're blessed with our, we're endowed with this beautiful weather, right? It's warm, it's it's not too breezy, and yet we're right in the middle of everywhere, right? You can get to San Francisco in about 15, 20 minutes, and get to South Bay in about 25 to 30 minutes, no more than that. And so, we're right in between, and it gives us this major advantages. And we are so close to transit, makes it even more appealing. But the other part is, how do you make sure that this is a safe community as well, and a welcoming, inclusive community? We're living in a time where public safety is a high priority for a lot of our constituency, and we really strive hard to make sure and put public safety as our number one priority, and put the resources where it's needed to make sure everyone here in Millbrae, not only are they safe, but to make them feel safe, because they're two different things.
Sure.
And I'm quite happy to say that this is a top priority for this administration, and then at the same time, people are feeling safe in Millbrae.
I can say I feel safe.
Yeah, and that's something that I take pride in. And also the cleanliness of our downtown and all of our neighborhood, and how welcoming and inclusive they are. Right?
Yeah, and you brought up like the downtown area and the cleanliness. One of the things that I was watching one of the meetings, I think it was not this week, but the one before it, that was talking about the CBD, right? And perhaps you can talk a little bit about that, because that kind of goes along with improving the downtown area.
Yeah, so to be able to bring downtown to where we aspire to be, which is a vibrant destination, it needs to be a place where you want to be here and just hang out and gather on a Thursday evening, Friday evening, Saturday evening, and it needs to be filled with people, right? How do we make sure that we create this destination features for our downtown? Part of it is that we're quickly becoming a city of festival. I'm sure you've experienced the Lunar New Year Festival, the Mid-Autumn Festival, the Art and Wine, the Beats, Brews, and Vines that we've been hosting, a series of that in the summer. Millbrae continues to put on all these different festivals to welcome everyone who wants to dine, who want to entertain and play right here in the city, because we created a safe environment. And then at the same time, it takes a multi-pronged approach. And then that CBD, which is what, instead of calling the acronym, is the Community Benefit District, whereby we can create more inviting sidewalks, whitening the sidewalk, some benches, new flowers, new decorations. If you walk down to, for example, Burlingame downtown, Broadway, or Burlingame Avenue, or San Mateo downtown, they close off a certain part of the streets, certain area where they have outdoor benches. And in front of ice cream shop, in front of the Apple store, there are benches in front of it, and oftentimes you see younger folks eating ice cream or having a cup of coffee there, having a conversation. And those are the type of things that we wanted to create in terms of an environment, so sure, that Millbrae could become a destination for those who want to just hang out. And how do you do that? Is by establishing one of the strategy is to establish a community benefit district, where there is an extensive cleanliness, ensuring that those who need help gets the assistance they need in terms of the homelessness, and then at the same time better security, better public safety, and also promoting our downtown, which is one of the most important part of the strategy for the CBD, is to promote the downtown so that we can bring about the economic vitality that is needed.
Yeah. Well, along those same lines, now, when you got elected, it's a 4-year term, correct?
That's correct.
So, what I know there's a lot of things that you want to accomplish within that 4 years. How do you envision downtown Millbrae, or I should say Millbrae as a whole, in the next, say, 5 to 10 years? Do you have a vision for the city?
I do. Millbrae needs to be a place where, it needs to be affordable. It needs to be inviting. It needs to become a destination. I think I'm, part of our work as an elected official on the council is to how to figure out a way to improve the quality of life of our residents. I see, people look at me as a politician, but I look at myself as a public servant, where politics should be a mean to an end, and the end is quality of life of every resident who put me in this chair. And that's how I see this work and the meaning of it and the purpose of it. And so, with that, I think, how do I make sure that the same 23,000 people who elected me, or maybe, 30,000 people, moving forward, or maybe even more, how do I ensure that their quality of life in the city is good, and that they're proud to call this place home, and that they feel safe? Number one concern through a lot of the seniors who lives in our city, we're actually a very age-friendly city where we have, a sizable of our populations are actually 65 and above, is how do they make sure that their children and their grandchildren can live close to where they are? Because cost of living is so high, and that many of, the younger generation had to, live hours away from their parents or grandparents. I have a concern about where my children are going to live, 10 years and 15 years from now. My daughter is 18. My son is, coming up 17 pretty quickly here. And cost of living isn't necessarily coming down anytime soon.
It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah. And so, with that, how do I make sure that the city continue to be as beautiful as it is, as inviting, as inclusive as it is, and to make it more affordable, so that those who aspire to be a Millbrae resident can become a Millbrae resident. And that requires our downtown to get built up, and so that we can bring more efficient units, more affordable units, so people can live and work and entertain right here in our downtown, where they will be less rely on private vehicles, and they can use better public transit, high quality public transit to get to and from where they need to work and shop and entertain, and be able to live close to their families. And I think that would be a priority of this administration's, and that's how I envision Millbrae needs to be 5, 10, 15 years from now. As you can see, some of our downtown properties, they're one-story buildings, and that's hardly the highest and best use of these valuable real estate. How do I make sure that they get to be developed? And that's exactly why we have a local density bonus program to encourage and incentivize property owners to develop these properties, so that, instead of just a one-story storefront, there could be at least 4, 5, 6 stories of residential or even office space on top of that.
Yeah. Better utilize the land, right?
We're not creating any more land. And land use it requires creativity, and it requires flexibility. And, for someone with our background, we understand, how important, that mindset is. So with that said, how do I make sure I can fit more people in that same piece of land, with the vertical opportunities that currently they're not taking advantage of?
Well, that's a beautiful vision. I can't wait to see that happen.
Yeah, and I think this is a common vision for a common one that needs to a lot of folks who are in Millbrae today. The number one thing is like, where's my kids going to live? A lot of people ask me that question. So,
yeah, love it. And I am running up against the time right now, because I told you we were going to be done in half an hour. So my last question is something that is maybe a little more personal, just so people get to know you a little bit. So when you're not running for office, what do you do on your downtime? Do you golf? You have a dog? Well, what is it that makes you happy?
Great question. Being in elected office, oftentimes, you get many different events in the evening time. So I'm rarely, in my confession here is that I rarely stay home for dinner. But when I do, I cook, and that's what makes me happy, and that's what makes my family happy. Nothing beats a good steak for my son and my daughter and my wife. So, and that's the time at which you get to celebrate with your family, with one another, and get to know what their days were like, and having the same conversation that we just had, but discussing that with a couple Gen Zs, in terms of
I'm curious, how does that go?
Yeah, and trying to figure out, what are the newer generation think?
Sure.
What do they see? Because they look at this world through a different set of lenses that are different from you and I.
Sure.
And we put on different set of lenses than our parents.
Yeah.
So seeing that from their perspective, because quite frankly, whatever I do today, whatever we do today, I mean, we're relatively set with our lives, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
So whatever we do today, the ultimate beneficiary of those work are our next generations. And that's how I see it. Right?
Love it.
It is less than likely, hopefully, less than likely that I'll be living in one of those condos that I approve. So it would be more than likely those who are in their teens right now, at some point, that they will become the occupants of those. So the work that we do today, they are the direct beneficiary, and then they will inherit it. And hopefully, by the same token, if we can do as much good as we do, they can also, have the same mindset. And as they benefit from these opportunities, they can also create new opportunities for their future generations for the next 15, 20 years. And that's how I see it.
I love it. All right, Anders. Thank you so much for your time. Again, I've already said this to you, but thank you so much for your service. You are doing a wonderful job. I'm honored that you represent my district. So just thank you very much. And I wish you the best of luck on all of those projects that you're working on right now.
And thanks for having me on your, on your podcast, and be able to, have an opportunity to, share a little bit of a time and the airtime with your audience and your fans. Happy to be on here anytime you like to have me here.
All right, Anders. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Take care.
Thank you so much.